Hello, welcome back to the Najdorf course. In this chapter, we're going to look at the Alapin variation, the second move, c3. A very important variation. It's well known and very popular amongst many club players, amateurs, and it's occasionally also played at the highest level when the players want to play it very safe, very solid, and it should be taken seriously. The last thing we want is to end up with a bad position against the Alapin. So I certainly did take it seriously and took a very good look at it, and I would like to share my findings with you. So let's jump straight into it. e4, c5, and now c3. So the advantage of the Alapin is that white can play it against any Sicilian, and so it also works against the Najdorf players. And while the approach seems very ambitious, white wants to grab a center with d4. In reality, it's not, and black has pretty simple ways of equalizing. White's problem is that it's black to move, so he's not in time to grab the pawn center with d4. We hit him with knight f6. Likewise, d5 is a major system. The point is after d5, queen d5, white doesn't have this c3 square, and as we all know, queen on d5 is doing very well, which is not the case in the Scandinavian, because after e4, d5, ed queen d5, the so-called Scandinavian defines the central counter. There is knight c3 hitting the queen. This is why the Scandinavian is a very bad opening. But yeah, against Alapin, d5 certainly one of the two good moves. But knight f6 is my main recommendation. I feel it's even better. e5, white has to play e5. There is no way for him to protect this pawn comfortably now that the c3 square is also taken away from the knight. So e5, now we play knight d5. And here white has a choice from a couple of different move orders. He can go for d4 first, or bishop c4 followed by bishop b3 after knight b6, or start with knight f3 as well. So let's look at all that, and then some of these things might also intertranspose. Let's basically, let's see, because there will be many times I will have to mention transpositions. There is no way around it. So let's just look at it move by move. So d4 is the most often played move here. We take c takes d4. Now knight f3, d6 will be transposing to 4 knight f3. Bishop c4, knight b6, bishop b3, d6, challenging the e5 pawn, knight f3, knight c6 will transpose to also 4 knight f3. c takes d4 here is the independent move, and now I play d6. Knight f3 once again transposes to 4 knight f3. Bishop c4 is a rare system. It's not very good here. We play knight b6. If bishop b5 check, we go bishop d7. e6, yeah, that's a very original idea that looks quite spectacular. After bishop b5, white has queen to h5. Hitting the f7 and the b5 bishop, but it's not very good objectively. We take fe6, and yeah, these unusual pawns are still pawns, and we have good control over the d5 square. And after bishop d3, which is white's idea, threatening queen h5 mate, here we play g6, and after h4, white will try to undermine our g6 pawn, but we play bishop g7. And after h5, we go bishop c6. We get the king to safety. King on d7 is going to be beautifully placed, hidden behind this wall of pawns. And we have this huge control over the d5 square, and the d4 pawn is weak. And black is doing quite well here. So after ag, bishop g6, yeah, king d7. King is just marvelous. And knight will often find employment via a6 square. Bishop b3 move 7 is also possible. Now after d5, white can play queen h5. It's a delayed attempt to give us some sort of a scholar's mate, but yeah, we don't fall for it. We go e6, close the diagonal for the bishop, and after e5, we play knight c6, and knight c3 is met by queen d3. A very strong move. The bishop on b3 is not on the b1 h7 diagonal where it belongs. And next we want to play queen g6, intending to trade the queens with very good position, as the e5 pawn is in general a weakness in the endgame. So yes, 4d4 is mostly just going to transpose to 4 knight f3. 4 bishop c4 is an interesting move order, and one I also played once against Boris Gelfand in a recent online game. We play knight b6 and bishop b3, And here it's important to get the move order right to stay within our repertoire. And here I go d6. Now the point is after knight f3, we play first c4 after bishop c2. Now we take on e5. In general, we try to avoid this big tabia, which is fine for black, of course, but white has lots of different options here connected with some a4, for example, a4 pushes and so on. So this we try to avoid. We play here c4, bishop c2. Now we take on e5. It's slightly counterintuitive, but we provoke the knight to e5, and after knight e5 we play queen d5, we hit him. And here, if white plays knight f3, we have bishop f5, trading this strong bishop. While if white plays knight queen e2, which is strong, we don't capture the g2 pawn. That's too risky. We play f6, hit the knight back, and after knight f3, queen e6, we offer a trade of queens. And the endgame is comfortable. After, for example, d4, we can just take on d3, en passant, cd3, bishop d3, queen e2, bishop e2, and e5. Our e5, f6 pawns are very beautiful. They're restricting the f3 knight, and next we want to develop with knight e6 and bishop e6. Just a very comfortable position, more space in the center, and easy development. 11 d3 is a slightly more challenging pawn break, but here we take on e2, king e2, and play e5 as well. And again, we develop easily with knight e6, bishop e6, and black just has very easy play. So this is good move order to avoid all sorts of things. E takes e6 is another option. Move 6. Now we take with queen. And here again, it's important. After knight f3, we play c4 first. We don't go after knight f6 into that big theoretical tabia. We play c4. After bishop c2, we have a very strong intermezzo queen e6 check, using the fact that white hasn't castled yet. Now if white goes for the endgame, again after queen e2, king e2, we are very fine. F6 would be a direct transpo, but even easier here is to take and just play knight c6 followed by e5, bishop e6. And so critical move is knight king f1. It's not so bad. The king is alright here, and the h1 rook will be activated with h4, h5, so this is playable for white. But black is also fine. We go g6. After h4, we just go bishop g7. We allow the h1 to be pushed, although there are different options, of course. But yeah, I think it's very fine. After h5, we play knight c6. We just want to develop, and we are keeping the options open for the king. We might want to castle short. We might also very well castle long. For example, after d4, white has to also start developing, of course, his queen side. He's neglecting it a little too long. d4, cd3, en passant, queen d3, and now there are many moves, but I like this knight e5 move. And after knight takes e5, queen takes e5, we traded white's developed knight on f3. He still has underdeveloped pieces here on the queen side. And next we want to play bishop f5 or bishop d7, and very likely simply castle long. Very good position for black. And if 7 knight a3, stopping c4. Here we play a6. We stop any d4, cd4, knight b5 business. a6 neutralizes this a3 knight, so it's worth spending a tempo on it. Now white has a few options. Yes, now few options: knight f3, queen f3, and knight e2. If queen f3, white is just going for check on f7, we just go e6, and yeah, there's not much sense in that. We follow up with knight c6 and natural development and have a good position. Instead of queen f3, knight f3 is more natural. Now we play knight c6, and after castle, we play bishop f5. Yeah, we transposed into one of the lines in that tabia, but with the knight on a3, so this particular line is quite harmless. We play bishop f5. Bishop f7 is not really working, but it's a beautiful idea, but it doesn't work. King f7, queen b3 check, hitting the king and the knight, but we have knight d5. Also good, by the way, is king e8, queen takes b6, and knight d4 or knight e5. Yeah, this is a good position here, but knight d5 is even better, keeping the piece. Knight c4, queen d8, queen b7, rook c8, and black is just a piece up, so bishop f7 doesn't work. 10 d4 is the move, and now cd4, knight d4. Yeah, if white takes with the pawn, we can play e6. The knight on a3 is very much misplaced in these structures. Not knight d4, cd4, we play e6. And now after queen f3, I like the move queen c6, the easiest option. Queen d7 is more popular, queen c6 is very easy. Now the endgames are very comfortable, especially with the king still on e8. We'll bring the king to d7, where it will stand very well, protect the c6 pawn, and we will gain space in the queen side with a5, a4. All these weaknesses, they compensate for each other. The d4 pawn is weak, the c6 pawn is weak, but very well protected by the king from d7. This endgame, in general, very comfortable for black. d5 is a temporary pawn sack. White can play, but it doesn't bring him much. We take knight d5, rook d1, knight f6. There was a threat of bishop takes d5, of course. Knight f6, now queen 6, bc, bishop a4 threatens bishop takes c6, but we can play bishop e4. And now after knight c4, bishop c5, we'll finish our development. White is likely going to regain his sacrificed pawn, but not more than that. So this should be fine. Instead of 14 d5, 14 queen g3 is there. Now we can just take on a3 with the tempo. And after b takes e3, I didn't mention queen takes g7, I believe, because we can just castle long and play rook g8. So white has to take b takes a3. Now we castle short. And the position is pretty balanced because white has a bishop pair, but he's got a horrible pawn structure on the queen side and very weak d4 pawn, which the pawn itself is not too weak. The problem is that the square in front of it is very weak. The knight on d5 is going to be ideally placed, and whenever bishop h6 will come, we have always bishop g6 defending from queen takes g7, obviously. So yeah, it's a very comfortable position for black. Very easy solution there. Finally, 892 is also there. The idea is to go d4 and then perhaps bishop f4. Now we play knight c6, castle and g6. Here, d4, bishop f4 directly will be met by takes and e5. So white tries to be clever. He plays rook e1 first. And now, after bishop g7, d4 cd, bishop f4, we don't have any more e5 because of the pin after knight takes d4, but we play queen d8, and after knight d4 cd, we can just castle. And this position is fine. White has some open files and diagonals, but his d4 pawn is isolated, and mostly the knight on a3 is out of play. Knight belongs in the center, of course. Besides 10 rook e1, white also has 10 knight g3. Here, knight e4 is threatened, so we have to be a little accurate. Knight a5 is strong, freeing the c6 square for the queen and also hitting the b3 bishop. After knight e4, we have queen c6, bishop c2. Now we develop bishop g7, and our knight on a5 is on the edge, but so is the knight on a3. So these two bad boys compensate each other, and the position is fine for black. There are two other options. Move 7, d4, cd4, knight 3 and c6 will transpose the position we'll see under 4 knight f3 move order. 7 knight e2 is not very dangerous. We can push c4 here as well, bishop c2 and play g6. And yeah, bishop g7 is going to be very harmonious. Then we want the castle after a4. Knight c6 is very accurate. The idea is that now after knight a3 we can play a6 and a5 is no longer there. Now I believe this covers the 4 bishop c4 move order. Mildly confusing all the transpose, but basically we will recap everything at the end. Once again, it's always hard when you are showing all this material and there are so many transpose that first when you say there's transposition to there or transposition to there, you don't really it's very hard for the viewer to quite understand what exactly it transposes to, but I think first we will go through everything and then it will be a lot more clear. Finally, 4 knight f3, d6, and now bishop c4, knight b6, bishop b3 transposes to the other line we saw with c4 and d takes e5. 5 e takes d6 is usually met, in general, these kind of captures are usually met with the move e6. We want to recapture harmoniously with the bishop. Pawn, of course, is not going to run away anywhere. Here, after d4 cd, we'll transpose to 5 d4 first. And after 6 g3, we can take with bishop d6, bishop g2, castle. Yeah, d4 knight c6 is the same thing as castle first. After castle, knight c6, d4. Yeah, we're here already ready to push with e5, so d4 is sensible, trying to fight for the center. Now we take on d4, and after knight d4, white of course doesn't want to create an isolated pawn, so he takes with the knight and then with the queen. And after knight d4, queen d4, we transpose the position, we check under 5th move d4 as well. yeah, I'm really sorry about the transpose, but we have to do that because otherwise we cannot look at the same position in 10 different move orders. So let's continue with 5d4. Now we take cd4, and here there are again a few options. If ed6, which is a rare move but a decent one, we play again e6, knight d4, bishop d6. If white goes for bishop d3 development, we'll castle and play knight c6. We want to trade the strong knight on d4, and after knight c6 bc, this pawn on c6 is not exactly weak here. There are many pieces on the board, and we have good control over the center. After knight d2, we play e5, and next we want to push with f5. Knight on d5 is well protected by the pawn on c6, and the weakness of the c6 pawn is not really playing a role at the moment. What's much more relevant is the fact that we will start a good kingside play here on the here on f5 and e5. Besides bishop d3, h3 is a challenging move. Now we play knight c6. I propose starting with knight c6. It is a little more clever than castle first. The idea is, we will see the idea in a moment. First, if knight bishop g2, here we take, knight d4, queen d4, castle. Yeah, this position we had seen from the other move order. Now I recommend move queen c7. d5 pawn is not really hanging because at the end, of course, these holes around the white king are tremendous, and the bishop pair advantage is huge. Here, the move c4 was recommended by Grandmaster Johann Sebastian Christiansen in his excellent Alapin course. But while his course is excellent, there is only so much you can do with Alapin. Of course, black has ways to equalize, and the easiest here is the move knight f6, which is an easy improvement that I suggest. And after knight c3, we play bishop d7, developing the bishop, intending bishop c6. Black is very fine. If knight b5, we always take on b5, and white's pawn structure has been damaged. And the fact that we have this majority on the king side compensates for the fact that white has the bishop pair. Besides c4, 14, knight d2 is the most played move. Now I recommend bishop d7. Again, we can ignore this. d5 pawn is not really hanging with this weakened squares on the king side. Even without, usually black has enough compensation in such cases for the pawn because of two bishops, but especially with these weaknesses around the king, black has tremendous compensation. Yeah, and here after knight e4, instead we can play bishop e5, escaping the trade, of course, of the knight against the bishop. And next we want to play bishop to c6, rook to d8, excellent pawn structure, just very fine position. After 8, knight c6, white can also take knight c6 bc, and here the idea why we play knight c6 so early is revealed after bishop g2, which is the most natural. We have now the option of bishop a6, stopping white from castling, and it's very annoying actually for white to face it. If knight d2, intending to push c4 and then castle, we have another annoying strong move, queen to a5, stopping c4 because of bishop takes c4, and there is a pin here from a5 to e1. So yeah, here white already has no pretty way of getting rid of this annoying bishop a6, where he cannot really castle so easily. Instead, white should be more alert. Instead of bishop g2, play 10th c4. Now we bring the knight to e7. Knight is well placed here. Can go to f5 if need be. White goes bishop g2. We castle. b8, bring the rook to the open file. Intend c5, controlling that strong, potentially strong d4 square where the knight will be heading towards. After knight c3, we go queen c7, intending knight to 5 and guarding the c6 pawn, b3. Sensible idea. White wants to develop his bishop. Now we play knight f5, bishop b2, rook d8. We want to drop the bishop from d6 back and install a knight on d4. And here, I believe I give a couple of example lines. So if knight e4, we play bishop e7, queen goes to h5, and now c5, intending knight d4, when we neutralize the b2 bishop and have a very good position. Queen h5, move 16 is slightly more tricky, and now we can play g6. It looks a little risky, but it works. If queen g4, we have e5, and yeah, there is an x-ray from the c8 bishop to the queen, so knight d4 is coming. If queen f3, we have knight d4, another tempo. Now queen e3 is the trickiest, allowing knight c2, but there are some tricks. Queen h6, first of all, is met by bishop f8, so that's fine for black, hitting the queen and not allowing some knight e4 business. 19 queen c1 is the trickiest. Now, if we take knight takes a1, we can also just return with knight to d4 and be fine, but I like knight takes a1, it works. White goes knight e4 intermezzo. It looks a little bit scary, he's got the strong bishop, but we can just defend with bishop e5, blocking the diagonal. White continues with knight f6 check, king g7 and knight g4. But now we take on b2, queen b2, and interpose this check here with move e5. And after knight e5, we've got an extra rook, which we will be now returning with knight takes b3, very strong move, intending knight d4 against any discovered check. And after ab, we have rook takes b3, sacrificing now the exchange. And after queen b3, queen e5, we have successfully defended from the attack and traded finally everything. And in this simple position, black will have, after bishop c6, this outside passer with, on a7, and it's only black who is now playing for advantage. Again, it was also possible to just play knight d4 back, so it was just a nice example line. And yes, this knight c6 early, bishop g2, bishop a6 was the point, which is very likely your opponent will also fall into. So that was all very nice and smooth. 6 bishop c4 is there. Here knight b6 works, after bishop b3, knight c6, cd4 we will see under 6 cd4 move order, and e d6 we play queen d6, and yeah, here it's very fine. With white having committed to d4, c6 d4 line, this is already very fine. Now next we want to play bishop e6 usually. After castle we play bishop e6, trading light squared bishops. White takes, we take with the queen, knight d4, queen d4 is an old line, it's very harmless, but there are a lot of games. You can play rook d8, queen h4. Now, in order to equalize, everything equalizes. White has no structural advantages, also no better development. But besides some simple moves like h5 or queen c4 or whatnot, I like the main move, the most aggressive queen e2, slowing down white's development. And after bishop e3, which white played quite a lot, we can just accept the sacrifice queen b2, knight d2, and rook d2. And there's actually no follow-up. It looks a little bit tricky, of course, that we haven't developed the bishop yet, but there's just no follow-up. After rook b1, we can take on a2 or c3, bishop d2, queen d2, and there is really no punishment here for our greediness. It's not even that white has a good try, like black is good with multiple options here onwards. 1492 is also not so great, same idea. Here we can also play e5, just intending to develop the bishop. Black is very fine, but you can also just grab on d2, after bishop d2, queen d2. White has given up 2 pieces for rook, and after rook of d1 we have a strong defense here with queen to h6, queen g3, and now queen to c6. We bring the queen back and meet queen b8 with knight c8, and now we're fine. Queen b8, knight c8. If white doubles with rook d3, e6. If white were to push before here, we would go e6, b5, queen c5, and then bishop after queen b7, bishop d6. And if white doubles with rook d3, e6, rook d1, bishop e7, we are in time to protect from rook d8 check. Rook d7 now castle, queen b7, and here important queen a4. Rook e7 is not possible because the rook is hanging on d1, and a2 is also hanging. Black is very fine. I mean, white can probably make a draw after b3, queen a2, rook e7, and then try to knight e7, queen e7, queen b3, then try to get 4 against 3. But yeah, it's not the way to fight for advantage. And once again, also 14 e5 was working. So queen d4, a lot of old games, but not very critical. cd4, of course, also harmless. After cd4, play queen d7. We will decide whether we go for e6 or g6 later. Rook e1, now we go e6 because g6 will be met by bishop g5. And after e6, queen g4, white tries to stop the development of our bishop, but yeah, now we go g6, and next we go bishop g7 followed by short castle. We're doing very fine here. If 39 c3, now we can play g6. It's easier not to deal with queen g4 ideas. We just play g6 and next bishop g7 and short castle. So black is quite fine here. Yeah, the only thing to avoid is this rook e1. Now g6 is bad because bishop g5. There's also bishop f6 ideas. So rook e1, e6, queen g4, g6, and knight c3, g6. Very easy solution. After castle, bishop e6 and move 9, there's also 10th knight a3. Now, yeah, this is a tricky-looking idea. In general, there are many of these tricky-looking ideas that have been developed in the times before the computers, but then with computers, they all turned out to be not working at all. Here we grab the pawn with DC. Knight b5, we take on d1, queen d1, rook d1, and rook c8. We stop knight c7 check. White's got nothing. e11, queen e2, trying to keep the queens. We just take on b3, knight b5, queen b8, a b3. Black has lots of ways of playing here, actually, that are fine. I just picked one of them, g6, simplest way to just fianchetto the bishop, bishop g7 and castle. Bishop e3, now bishop b6 is threatened, so we should address it. Knight d5 is fine, knight c8 is even simpler. Now the most common move is rook a4, then we go bishop g7, bishop f4, we have e5. And there is no follow-up, we just castle next. And 15 knight c3, we go bishop g7. b4, probably the best way for white to equalize, but after castle, b5, knight 5, we finished our development. And white's compensation for the pawn is only enough for equality at the best. So yeah, in some of these lines, it's just important to not panic and just follow up with the most direct moves, and it all just works out. Knight a3 is a little tricky because now our bishop e6 move is met by knight b5, but it is not very good. We take with the pawn on c3, and after queen e6, ed knight b5, yeah, knight c7 fork is not that hard to avoid. We just play rook b8. We are doing well. And after 10 queen e2, here we take on b2. An important idea, after bishop b2, we give queen b4 check. We don't let white to castle. Knight d2, we have a strong intermezzo, bishop g4, f3, bishop f5. And knight b5, now it's important to go rook d8, not fear a check on c7. Knight c7, king d7, that's fine for black. Likewise, after 12 king f1, we go bishop g4, knight b5, again rook d8. And knight c7 check, king d7 is not very dangerous. After knight b5, we can play e6. The king can go back to e8 or c8. And white also has the issue of not having developed his h1 rook. And that is why this queen b4 check move 11 is important. So another tricky line that doesn't really work. And finally, knight d4. Yeah, it's very simple. We just take knight takes d4, c d4, bishop e6. Trade also the bishops. Bishop e6 is still a thematic idea in these positions, trading the strong bishop. After castle, we take on b3, queen b3, play e6. And white can simplify with rook d1, bishop e7, d5. Yeah, this is why, this is what makes Alapin great for white, that sometimes, yeah, if he wants to play it safe, he has these safety escapes, like d5, knight d5, knight c3, castle, knight takes d5, ed rook d5. Yeah, queen e6 with complete equality for black. But yeah, this is not very impressive how white played it, of course. That is for 6 bishop c4. Now let's look at 6 queen d4. Oh, this queen d4, by the way, a little tricky. I once had a blitz game and got me very confused. I played e6, of course, the right move. And now, well, e d6 is not great because of knight c6, hitting the queen with the tempo. Bishop e5 first can be met by bishop d7, where trading bishops only helps us develop. We trade bishop d7, queen d7. Next we go knight c6. We are already ahead in development. Knight on b1 and bishop on c1 are not developed. The tricky move is knight bd2. Knight a3 leads to the same things as well. We play knight c6. And now queen e4 is not dangerous. We can just play bishop e7. After knight c4, we can even play the very aggressive move f5, which works very well. White hasn't developed yet, so we can open up the position and are doing very well here. The main idea is 8 bishop b5. And now after bishop d7, which is also what I played in my blitz game, I think bishop takes c6. White plays bishop takes c6. Now we have the strong bishop, of course, the bishop pair. But after knight c4, yeah, black has to be a little accurate here. And I think in one of the blitz games that I had here, I got a little confused here. I didn't really. My opponent played everything very quickly. I was very impressed, but there's a strong reply at b5. One thing I should mention is that knight c4 if white castles. Yeah, we here can play strong move f6. If ef, we play knight takes f6, and next we will play e5, bishop e7, castle, and we have this tremendous light squared bishop on c6. So knight c4 is critical after move 10, and now we play b5. Yeah, this is very strong. Not only do we force knight takes d6, but also we later on prevent this move c3, c4 after knight d6, bishop d6, ed. And now we just castle. So very straightforward solution actually. I remember I tried to find something smart here, find something clever in this game, but b5 is just very good. Knight d6, bishop d6, ed, castle. Now it's helpful that we don't have to face c4. White has a few moves. He cannot really hang on to the pawn. After queen e5, we play queen d7, protect the e6 pawn, wanna push f6, sorry, f6 here, and the rook fd8, and then win the g6 pawn. Very comfortable for black. After queen c5, we can play rook c8. Of course, the idea is that now queen d7 there is knight e5, so we should play rook c8. And after castle, we have knight b6. We are threatening bishop takes f3 discovery. And if white goes back to d4, we can now take on f3, gf, play knight d5. d6 pawn will be doomed, and white can win the pawn here. But of course, with these disastrous kingside pawns and us having a tremendous knight, the much safer king, black has more than enough compensation for this a7 pawn. And if 13b3, which is in human terms the most critical, c4 is after all threatened. Now we have strong response, queen takes d6. After c4 we go bc, bc, and now that we're using the fact that white hasn't castled yet, we hit him in the center with e5. White goes queen d2. There is still pin here. It looks as though white wins a piece, and he does, but we sacrifice it with queen g6, very strong. And after cd we have bishop b5. This slow move is the point. Now we remain we are now a piece down for a while, but g2 pawn is hanging, and queen e4 check is also in the position. And next we actually want just slow moves, rook fd8, rook ac8. White is just unable to castle. His king is totally stuck. This bishop is monstrous. White is actually in a great deal of trouble here. A very nice silent piece sacrifice here. So an important line to know, certainly, but if you do, then you're very comfortable. And finally, sixth move, cd4 is the last move we have to check here. And after knight c6, bishop c4 is the only real move. If white goes ed6, e6, bishop takes d6 is the usual reply, but in this particular case, queen d6 is very strong. Now after knight c3, we can play bishop to g4, develop this bishop, and then e6, bishop e7 is even more harmonious. All our pieces are comfortably developed. Black's doing very well. The 7th move, knight c3, yeah, it's not challenging. You just have to not mix up the move order. If you take on c3 first, bc, de, you have d5. Suddenly, it's very unpleasant. You should take de first, of course, and after de, now you take on c3, and after queen d8, knight d8, bc, you just play bishop d7, and the endgame is very comfortable for black. The e5 and c3 pawns are weak, so black is just on the good side of things here. 7 bishop c4 is critical. Now we play knight b6. And here, bishop b3 is a challenging system. It was quite funny. I encountered this in one of my YouTube streams against some not very well-known opponent. And before that game, I've never seen it before, so I felt immediately very pressured here. I went d takes e5, which is the only move, or the most critical move, of course. And after d5, knight a5, hitting the bishop. I still found this move, and after knight c3, I didn't really know what to do. Looked very uncomfortable here with the bishop still on f8. But fortunately, while this game I ended up in huge trouble, I eventually won it. But after this, I checked it. Of course, I was very curious what happened there, and that was very fortunate because later I faced this against Shahryar Mamediyarov in an online chess Olympiad in a serious tournament. But then already I was well prepared, so that was I was very lucky there. And then I knew that you should just take on b3, queen b3, and play simple move e6. And then after knight e5, there are two solutions. One is really simple, bishop e7. This is enough for a very easy equality. After queen b5, you just play king f8. You're not worried about it. If castle, you play f6. The bishop e6 leads the same thing as the bishop e6 castle f6. Yeah, here the bishop e6 castle f6. Knight cannot move because of bishop c4. Winning the exchange here. And if rook d1, we have queen e8, we trade queens, and after knight f3, queen f5, knight b5, king f7. Black's very comfortable in the same game. White has to win one of our bishops back to equalize, as we otherwise have currently a bishop pair. And yeah, d6, bishop e6, queen e2 is slightly more clever, but it's just enough to equalize after f6, knight c6. This white equalizing trick. Queen d7 is the easiest. After knight e7, we can play intermezzo, bishop c4, and after queen e4, queen e7, position is getting completely serialized. It's a very equal endgame. So bishop e7 kind of kills it, but ed is even more principled, is what I played against Shahryar. Now white's idea is bishop e3. White wants to keep the option of castling long. It could be quite tricky if you are not aware of it with black, but I was. So I played bishop d6 here. And after queen b5, it's important here to go king f8, not natural bishop d7, which after takes long castle gives white the small plus that he's hoping for. Instead, king f8 is very strong here. And now the best is f4, which is what Shahryar played, defending the knight. And now after bishop e6, I have this extra pawn on d5. The only issue is that black hasn't castled, and as I had already told you in some of the previous chapters, the problem with castling is not the weak king, not always the problem. Sorry, with not having castled is not always the weak king, but much more often the fact that the rook in the corner is out of play. But that is what I solved here after castle. It's important to play king g8 first because f5 was a threat. Now f5, bishop e5, f6, there is f6. And after rook d1, now it's important to address this rook on h8, and the obvious way to do so is to go h5. After king h1, I played h4. Bishop d4 is could be an improvement over the game of Shahryar against me. Now black's fine. We can either go h4 or take on e5 with the bishop. In both cases, with complicated position. After king h1, I pushed h4, h3, stopping the advance, and now getting this rook into the game with rook h5, queen e2, hitting the rook. Now rook f5. Rook is a little bit odd here, but it does do a good job putting pressure on e5 and f4 pawn. And after knight f3, bishop f4 would fail to knight d4, but I have a strong intermezzo, knight c4, and after bishop c1 that Shahryar played. If knight d4, the point is, by the way, to take and play bishop c5, pinning the knight, and then we can always play rook f6 if need be. And after 22 bishop c1, I could grab the pawn with bishop f4 because now knight d4 is met by rook e5, hitting the queen. So the rook got into the game, and I was already better here and won convincingly. So I was lucky there that I studied the line in advance. Again, simpler is bishop e7, simple equality, but e5 I think is perfectly fine and also gives black very good chances to take over. 8 bishop b5 is the main move, and it leads to very simple positions. We take on e5, knight e5, play bishop d7, and here white has two options. Knight c3 allows knight takes e5, d5, bishop takes b5. We trade everything. Knight b5, queen d1, king d1, and now there is a threat of c7, knight c7 check. But we deal with it with a simple long castle. Also knight d5, by the way, is equalizing very comfortably. But long castle works by force, king e2, rook d5, hitting both the knight and the e5 pawn. Knight on a7 will get trapped. So white plays a4, and now we can take the pawn, rook e5, bishop e3, knight d5. And after rook h1, king b8, rook h d1. We are a little underdeveloped, so we have to solve that. We go e6. And now, after king f1, we are lucky to have a check with knight e3. And after king f3, we just give rook f5 check. Otherwise, there were some threats here with bishop a7 and bishop f4. So we give a check. And after king e2, we can go back. This is a forced repetition. And again, also the simple knight d5 is equalizing. So knight c3, move 10 is not dangerous. 10 knight takes d7 is the main move. Now we can take on d7. If white castles, we also play e6. So the main move knight c3, we can play e6, white castles. And here it's a little important moment. The tempting bishop e7 should be postponed because now white gets queen g4. And if castle bishop to h6, which puts a little bit of pressure on our position. Instead, it's important here to play rook d8. That's a final nuance in this chapter, I believe. And the idea is that now after bishop e3, we here play bishop e7. And after queen g4 castle, we've got this extra move, rook d8. And bishop h6 comes with loss of a tempo. And white has to already think of equality. 15 rook d1 is the best move. Now we can play g6, taking out the bishop h6 idea. and after d5, white gets to equalize, but not more. d5, 16, knight is d5, bishop a7, using the fact that the knight is pinned. And now we can play h5 first, including h5 is the easiest. And after queen f3, we play queen c7, knight d5, rook d5 ed. The bishop on a7 is attacked, as the queen has unpinned itself. And after bishop e3, white has the bishop pair and a potentially better pawn structure, but we are so active in the center that we get to easily equalize either with knight e5 or with queen e5 is the easiest. b2 pawn is hanging, and after a4, trading would give white some small plus, but we have knight d4, offering a trade of the knight for a bishop, and after bishop d4, queen d4. The position is fully simplified. We have opposite colored bishops left. The alternative on move 13 instead of bishop e3 is to move queen f3. But now the easiest is to just play a6, offering a trade after bishop c6, queen c6, queen c6, bc. In such structures, as I already mentioned before, in the one similar position we had, king is doing very well on d7 to guard the potentially weak c6 pawn, and black has plenty of counterplay. The d4 pawn is weak, the d5 square is all ours, and on the queen side we will push the a pawn forward to a4 and apply some pressure on these two pawns here. Nothing much to add here. 12 rook d8, important nuance. Remember bishop e7, queen g4, castle bishop h6, a little tricky. So rook d8 first, and then bishop e3, bishop e7 solves the issue. I believe this pretty much covers all of the second move c3, the Alapin variation. I hope you're now feeling confident in facing it. So again, just to sum up the move order issue and what it's all about after knight f6, e5, knight d5, we want to play d6 as soon as possible after knight f3, d6. And after bishop c4, we play knight b6 and then d6. And one position we avoid generally is this position with knight c6, ed queen d6, where white has the option of a4, a5, and a few other ones. But we do so by playing here c4, then d5, knight e5, queen d5. And otherwise, yeah, once we get d6, d4 already here, we are quite happy with this knight b6 business. And yes, here if white tries to get this like this, we go c4 and queen a6 check as well. And with knight a3, a6 included already, then already we don't fear it. We have bishop f5, e6. Yeah, and likewise, in these positions with d4, we are also feeling quite confident with the trade of the bishops, and also here with the trade of the bishops as well. So that is it for the Alapin. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next chapter, the last chapter. The second move alternatives are left, and all of the Sicilian is covered. Thank you for watching, and bye-bye.